Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors Tim and Julie Harris. This is the #1 daily radio show for realtors looking for a no BS authentic real-time coaching experience. What's really working in today's market, how to generate more leads, make more money, and have more time for what you love in your life. And now your hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris, and this is our favorite podcast for the week. We do this for you nearly every Friday. It's called our Fun Friday Show. And what we do is we talk about pretty much whatever is on our minds. A lot of you have said this is your favorite podcast of all of ours that we do, which is kind of a compliment, kind of not, because we put so much effort into our other shows.
And by the way, if this is your first Fun Friday, the other shows are all about real estate. And sometimes I think today we're going to talk about real estate a lot, but not always.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have an outline and we do have notes and whatnot. And we are going to be talking about, Julie's prepared for us to talk about 50-year loans, portable mortgages, things of that nature. So there's going to be some technical stuff in here, but we won't let it dominate the show because, again, this is Fun Friday. But you're going to want the notes. So make sure you subscribe to our newsletter, which is harrisrealestatedaily.com. I want to start out by thanking all of you for all of your massive support this year. Our podcast has had more downloads and views on YouTube this year than it has last year. We have increased our downloads on iTunes. I'm not going to yammer about this because you guys don't really care that much, but here's the bottom line. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you for growing the show. The show's been around for 14 years, maybe 15. I'd have to go back and check. And we've done literally thousands and thousands of podcasts. And normally what happens is podcasts plateau and then, you have your listenership and that's it. This one is growing, and it's growing because I think, frankly, all of you are realizing that what Julie and I have been sharing with you on the show has been helping you to be prepared for this new market and also to be motivated in such a way that you can be receiving really, I think, inspirational information that's designed to educate you. So our focus on the show is to educate you, motivate you, and then ultimately get you into action. And I'm going to start out by talking about this. I'm just going to roll right in, Julie. Oh, so you want to subscribe to the newsletter. You guys can tell we don't have an outline, right?
Warn you.
Yeah. So subscribe to the newsletter. Just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com or click the link below. All right. I'm going to start out. And Julie, if this is in your notes, that's fine. There have been buzzwords that have been floating around, and they've always started, and I'm going to sound like a little bit of a loon, but just bear with me. The little buzzwords that started out, and we are all easily succumbing to saying them and repeating them without realizing what we're saying. Mm-hmm. For example, I'll give you guys one that will make you laugh. So Zoe started, almost 12-year-old. She started saying, instead of I think, she started saying, I feel like. And if your kids are doing this too, be wary of this, because this is frankly, Julie and I argue whether it's bad grammar or not, but I think it's bad grammar. So she'll say I feel like, and then she'll state a fact. Can you give them an example, Julie?
I feel like we're getting too much homework this week.
Right. Opposed to, I think we're getting too much homework. You guys get it?
Or just, we're getting too much homework this week.
Right. And she is getting too much homework. But the
yes.
moral...
However, because this is Fun Friday, I must point out that this is still superior to 6-7 all day long every day, which some of you have also been suffering, especially in the middle school years. So yes, but the point of avoiding, unless you're talking about a feeling, I feel hungry, I feel sick today, I feel tired. That's where I feel is appropriate. If you have an I feel in front of a statement, it takes your conviction away. It makes the statement sound weak. It makes you sound uncertain or unsure. Right. And it also makes it sound like you're kind of testing out, I don't know what Tim's going to think about this. Instead of saying it is, I'm going to say, well, I kind of feel like it might be.
It's a weak communication style, and it's weak phrasing, and it's designed to make the person speaking not sound too aggressive. And if you guys will go back, when you hear somebody make a statement, but the upswing at the end, you guys remember that?
It's very similar to that. Yeah.
You remember the upswings at the end? So Julie, you would agree probably that we should pick Zoe up at school on time?
You can't even do it.
I can't do it. Well, it's because Julie and I have coached people for so long, and a lot of you can give somebody a really good script that works 9 times out of 10, but at the upswing at the end, they lose. Would you sign the contract, please? No.
You can't do it because you're so trained out of it. But I actually, so in the interest of that upswing, I don't know if you've noticed this because you listen to the same Morning Wire podcast that we do,
Yeah.
just the quick snippet of things. They had a new reporter on and she kept doing this, and she's from California because that's also a bit more cultural out there. And over the course of maybe 8 morning podcasts, they must have trained it out of her because she doesn't do it anymore.
Well, so where does that come from? It comes from an innate desire to not cause conflict. And I mean, you guys can psychoanalyze it all you want, and I'm not going to bother with it. But the reality
Just
of
don't
it,
do it.
you just don't do it because it makes you sound weak. So when you start, if you hear your kids saying or anybody else saying, and you guys will, and again, I haven't even got to what I'm really trying to share with you guys. So be weary of all these things that started to percolate through. Usually it starts with younger people and they're getting it from school, hearing it from other kids, hearing it on YouTube. All right. So at the beginning of this year, you guys will remember the key word that was all of us were supposed to be saying is uncertainty, right? Uncertainty, uncertainty. Everywhere you turned the news,
Economic uncertainty, political uncertainty, housing uncertainty. You could just insert it wherever you felt like.
Now, why was everyone using that word? And that word faded out about mid-year. It was a political manipulation. That's really what it was. And I know you guys, some of you are rolling your eyes right now, but I want you to actually consider what I'm saying. So there are groups of people, and in politics primarily, that are trying to control your behavior and control how you think and control how you react to different things. And a lot of that has a very innocuous, like almost you just accept it. Well, that's different. I want to sound hip, or I want to sound cool, or, I've heard different people saying it in a certain way. And, when people are expressing how they feel, I noticed at the beginning of 2025, they're using the word uncertainty a lot. I mean, we talked about it on this podcast, but we didn't use the word uncertainty. We caught ourselves because I pointed out to Julie, have you noticed that a lot of, doesn't matter what media source is using the word uncertainty. What they were trying to do is it was a political thing. They were trying to make you think that you should feel uncertain, even if you were confident.
Yeah.
You guys get it? Now, what are they doing? There's a new word that's crept in. Do you guys know what it is?
It's, by the way, the theme of our podcast today.
It's affordability. The hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean?
Or a lack of affordability.
I know what it means, right? But you guys notice that everyone is talking about affordability now? That's another buzzword that they're trying to basically get. I did say they. I know I sound like a conspiracy person, but I promise you what I'm saying is true. There are people that sit around in think tanks and try to control your behavior, try to control the political narrative, and they're
telling you what you should be paying attention to.
Exactly, but they're telling you what you should think. So right now, at the beginning of the year, you're supposed to be feeling uncertainty. Oh, let's see if that works. Do enough people feel uncertain? It's getting on the cover of New York Times and all these other places. All right, well, that didn't necessarily stick. Now let's make people, especially going to the holidays. Ooh, what about tariffs? Now they're going to talk about affordability. What does affordability mean? There's always been affordability problems. Oh, you're not experiencing an affordability issue. Well, maybe you're just not paying attention. Maybe, it's because you're, part of the you're part of the maligned, affluent group of people.
You make too much money. That's why you don't understand.
So you don't feel the affordability crisis. Oh, the words crisis is being put after it as well. You guys. So I want you to be very, very cautious, very self-aware of the words that are coming out of your mouth, and then stop using them, because all you're doing is you're carrying somebody else's water. And again,
the word becomes less and less meaningful. It starts to lose its actual definition the more you apply it where it doesn't belong.
Right. Okay. So this is Fun Friday. That wasn't very fun.
I mean, not to nerd out grammatically, but it does happen. I mean, why do word trends happen? Why did 6-7 start to fade away? Because it literally means nothing, and the kids just got kind of sick of doing it. It became more and more meaningless.
But they are
using, not fun anymore.
But the people that essentially are trying to shape culture do intentionally. It's basically Julie called. I mean, it would be called virtue signaling. It is also trying to show that you're part of a specific group. All these things. Look, don't be offended by what I'm saying. Just be aware that if you're using some of these things and saying some of these things, you're being manipulated. Now,
yes.
If you want to be manipulated, go for it. Say the things. If you are feeling uncertain, and that's the word that describes your emotional state, go for it.
But be accurate about it. Think about what you're actually saying.
All right. So let's talk about the next thing, Julie. And this is something that was on our notes. Now, there was a lot of, again, unbelievable Mickey Mouse about the 50-year mortgage. I did not read one single thing anywhere. I'm so tempted to tell a story.
It's Fun Friday.
All right, I'm going to tell a story. So I'm in the gym the other day and I'm talking with Peter Schiff. And you guys, a lot of you know who he is. Julie and I have become friends with him since we live in Puerto Rico. I really love the guy, honestly.
We have a lot of respect for him, Sobi, because I know where you're going with your story.
Yeah. Okay. So where I'm talking to Peter about real estate. And if you guys don't know who Peter Schiff is, I mean, arguably he's one of the, I think, best known contrarian economists / investors in the world. I think that's probably a true statement.
And if you go into the back catalog of our podcast, you've interviewed him, I think, twice.
Yeah, we have. And some of our most downloaded and listened to podcasts full time, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So anyway, we have mad respect for Peter. So please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Now, Peter and I are talking about real estate, and Peter wanted to talk to me about the 50-year mortgage. And he wanted to, he was in the midst of writing a long form article on X. I found out because he published the next day. And he and I were bantering about the 50-year mortgage. And he said it was a terrible idea. He said it was a carve out for the banker class, all these things. And to which I listened to what he had to say. And every single thing he was saying was a talking point that he read from, essentially somebody who had a political bent to making you believe that the very proposal of a 50-year mortgage was somehow evil or bad. And I listened to him talk, and he was, citing all of the interest you'll pay on the loan, the payment doesn't drop by that much. Then he said, if there's a real affordability crisis in real estate, what has to happen is home prices have to drop. That's what he said. I said, so what happens if home prices drop? I mean, what does that do to the economy? Well, he didn't have anything. He kind of just brushed it off. I mean, he's a friend, so I'm not going to try to corner him and have a debate with him. Right. But, the reality of it is the idea that home prices were to drop would absolutely devastate the economy. You want proof? Go back to 2007, 2008. Because when home prices drop, so do all the banks do, the economy does. It just is a dumpster fire. So the idea that we're going to solve the affordability crisis, and there is a problem with homes people not being able to afford homes. There are the average age of the first time buyer has gone from 28 to 38, nearly 40, right? Mm-hmm. And all these things. So there is a challenge with all of that, but it's payments. It's not prices.
Which are made up of more than just the price.
Exactly. And so it's payments. People do not care what the price is. They care what the payment is.
Okay, so let me prove that, listeners. What's your car payment? You can tell me it's $1,123.12. Do you remember what the purchase price was? I bet you don't.
Yeah, exactly. But people care what their payment is. That's how everyone buys things. And I want you to stay focused on what I'm saying. Just if you are against a 50-year mortgage, to prove that to yourself that you thought it through, I want you to steel man it, and I want you to argue for a 50-year mortgage. And I'm going to do it for you now. This is what I did with Peter, by the way. It didn't go over well. Didn't really listen to me, but still nonetheless. All right. So here's
the same argument that you're about to make could be applied to a 40-year mortgage as well. That's
or a 30-year mortgage, or a 20-year mortgage, or a 10-year mortgage, or a 5-year mortgage. All right.
Yes. So fire away.
Number one, if you have a lower payment, that means you can afford the house. So and there are all kinds of people that are showing that the average payment on a house if it was amortized over 50 years would drop by between, I think it was $400 and $500. That's $6,000 a year. Now say with me, just let me get this out, Jules. Okay.
The math is in the notes for people that care, but go ahead.
Okay, good. Yes. All right. So you think, well, 6,000 is a lot. 6,000 isn't a lot, but 6,000 is a shit ton of money, because what can you do with that 6,000? You could actually take that money and you could invest it. You could put it in the S&P 500. Too risky? Well, how about this? And this is what I said to Peter. I said, if someone's payment is lower, and then they can, and it's like you guys, real estate agents, right? You could have some bad months, and wouldn't it be nice that you had a lower house payment, right? So if people have a lower house payment, they can easily afford it. They can more easily qualify for it. They can easily keep it over time. By the way, that asset, historically speaking, over the last forever, is going to increase in value, if for no other reason than it's inflating in value. You call it appreciation, I call it inflation. So the house is going to get more valuable over time. So that payment that's a fixed 50-year fixed payment, it might be, $2,500 now, But in 5 years, $2,500 is going to be the equivalent of probably what $1,800 is now. Do you guys understand? It's going to be less and less impactful as you start to earn more money as other things appreciate in value, including the house. But here's the thing I said to him, and I'll say it to you. All right. So let's say, for example, I'll stick with $2,500. Let's say it's a 50-year AM and now my payment is $2,000. I could take, if I pay additional money towards the balance of the mortgage every single month that I would have been paying had it been a 30-year, but now it's a 50-year. 30-year would have been 2,500, 50-year, it's now a 2,000. But let's say I'm going to be disciplined and I'm going to take that extra $500 per month, $6,000 a year, and I'm going to include it in my house payment. And then when you do that, it automatically gets reduced from the principal balance. It doesn't get paid towards interest. So if I already, and Julie, did you do this math? So if you were to do this,
but yes,
if you were to do this, that 50-year you'd pay off, and I'm guessing 22 years, Julie, something like that.
Somewhere like that. This is a great exercise to run through your ChatGPT because it'll whip out that math based on, there's so many different scenarios. I'll let you finish, and then I've got a couple of thoughts that are related.
So if you are so against the 50-year because you've been brainwashed into believing whatever the headline was, and now you're believing, well, 50 years is just universally bad because it came from Trump. Oh, that's the reason that people are taking this stance. They're trying to make it a political item. You are in the real estate business. Forget that you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or whatever you are, right? You are in the real estate business. You are pro-housing. You are pro-people buying and selling real estate. That's the moral of the story. So a 50-year mortgage makes it so more people can qualify for homes, makes it more people can afford homes, makes it so that more people will own a piece of the American dream. And by the way, the percent of net worth that's built, a homeowner versus a renter, Julie, do you have this ready?
About 400 times.
Okay.
As much.
You guys get that? So by owning a home, by the time you're, I think it's 65 or something, your net worth is so insurmountably larger because having a house payment is a forced savings account. Are you guys following me on all this? So what I'm saying is, yes, if you actually amortize the whole damn payment out and you paid the payment every single month for 50 years, which nobody's going to do, you are going to pay more than had it been a 30-year. Duh. Is that the only?
Which is also true had you paid your 30-year for 30 years or your 15 for 15 years or whatever, which nobody ever does because you move, you refinance, you sell, whatever you do.
Okay. So what if you were to take that 50-year and what if you were to buy down the interest rate? What if you were to take that 50-year mortgage and you were to buy down the interest rate and even make the payment lower and start paying towards the principal balance or just start renting? Or you just start investing in the S&P 500. I'm waiting for you to give me an argument against a 50-year. I'm waiting for somebody to actually. Okay,
if this is new to them, they need to know what the argument against it is.
One little bit more. Now, a lot of you want to buy rental properties. And the rental properties, that sucks. The payments don't work. I've been telling people, have been asking July, should I buy rental properties? And we've been saying, no, the math doesn't math. It doesn't work. You will lose money. And you'll get appreciation probably. You'll get depreciation definitely, but you won't get any cash flow. And guess what? If you're not getting cash flow and that payment and the house is vacant and then you have a roof repair, you're having to shovel out the money. And that's a quick way to go bankrupt. Okay. So we've been telling people not to buy rental properties because they don't cash flow. If you amortize them over 50 years, they cash flow again. So what's going to allow people to do is buy more rental properties. Do you care if it's amortized over 50 years or 30 years if a tenant is paying the mortgage? You do not. You do not. And by the way, you're going to be making cash flow from it. So you guys follow me on all this? Okay, Julie, let's hear it. What'd you have to say?
Well, two things. One is if this is new to them, they need to know that, especially because we've trained many of them to be media free. So they might not have heard about this. Okay. Is the counter argument to because I'm on your side on this and I have even a few more to add to that. The headlines were, well, you'll never build any equity. And if you compare what you would pay on a 30 versus a 50, it's like $200,000 more in interest that you're going to pay, for example. That's why you wouldn't want to spin out a 50-year mortgage. And also that you're not really saving that much in payment because the 50-year interest rate's going to be higher. The longer you spin it out, the rate's going to be higher.
This is the argument.
That's what they would say. It's bad, right?
Exactly.
Now, here's how I look at it. And I interviewed my personal elite coaching clients, almost all of them on this, to see where they were at, uncoached on how I would hope that they would answer. And they were pretty consistent about this as real estate professionals whose job it is to help people buy and sell real estate, right? So here's the way to look at it. You know how when you get your credit card statement, you've got a minimum payment, but you can pay more if you want to and defeat the interest? That's called flexibility. Okay. So the way I would look at this is if you get a 50-year to keep your payment low, you've got the flexibility. If you've got a lean month, if you lose your job, that is attacking affordability because that's giving you some options of just paying that minimum payment. Just because it's a 50-year fixed or a 30-year fixed or whatever does not mean that that's the only thing you can do for the next 50 years. You can invest the money that you're saving, as you said, Tim. You can just save it into a rainy day fund. You can pay extra principal. You can buy down the rate. You can refinance. You can do all of these things. Maybe you make double payments on the months that are really good for you.
What we've
Most
done,
of you listening have a flexible cash flow going on, right? Go ahead,
what
Tim.
we've done on our rental properties, those that still have mortgages, is as they've increased in rent over the years, we've never taken income for them. We just pay the cash flow and we put them towards paying all of them off.
Yes.
And as a result of that, we have, dozens of properties that we paid off and then we never sell them. And that's what you guys should do too. But the math hasn't worked in the last probably 5 or 6 years. It's going to work with a 50-year.
Yeah.
And
Also, you could do the 50-year, live in the house for 3 years with the lowest possible payment, and you could care less whether it was a 50-year. It's all in how you think about things. To me, it's another tool in the toolbox.
yes, but big banks are evil after all.
But of
Trump,
course.
Trump is horrible because so anything he proposes is bad after all. Trump is trying to carve out special things for his banker buddies after all. Okay,
Yeah.
you're not in your guy. Look, guys, I'm just trying to point out the fallacy in all of the argument. In the comments, let us know why you still believe a 50 years is a bad idea. It's an option. Not everybody will do it.
Just an option. You don't have to take it, but it
Here-
might be right for some people.
Here's ultimately what people said and what people will say. They'll say when people have a lower payment, they're not going to invest the money. They're just going to spend it. They're not going to put it in the S&P 500. They're not going to be paying towards their mortgage. That's the argument. So there's this parentalism that's essentially amongst the ruling class that essentially is trying to decide how you're going to spend your money. And after all, if we make your payment lower, you guys get the insanity of it all. So be careful. This is like, I feel that, or,
Well, it's also
uncertainty.
lack of fiscal education. People just don't teach this.
It's because people will, okay, we're going to go on to the CNBC thing I sent you. Okay. It's because here's what really happens is that we are being manipulated into just reading the quick headlines and then the summary of the headlines. And no better example is something that I was disgusted to see on a Diana Olick housing article. Now, let me say something about Diana. She's an honorable person. She's a great reporter. She's honestly,
been around forever. She used to do a lot of reporting during the housing crash in 2008 and 9.
and we learned a ton from her, and she had access and she's brilliant. We love her. But I promise you, whoever's writing Diana's headlines for her CNBC articles is absolutely 100% a clickbait artist because, Julie.
Yes, let's see whether that's the exact thing is in my notes. I don't think the exact title,
I'll
but
find
it was
it. You want me to
something.
find it online?
Yeah, it was foreclosures are skyrocketing, I believe was the headline.
I'll find it. Don't worry. I'll read it. Okay. So you can yammer a bit while I look for this.
Okay. So yes, foreclosures are skyrocketing. The sky is falling. The world is coming to an end. Cats and dogs living together. It's all going to come unglued again.
I found it. It was one of the top headlines on CNBC. And it goes, okay, I'm going to read this to you. I'm going to literally read this as it's written. New foreclosures jumped 20% in October, a sign of more distress in the housing market. Now, I will tell you that they changed the title from yesterday. Yesterday, it was even more salacious. So what they do, and I suspect they have AI doing this, is they'll take the same story and they'll rehash it with a different article. And here are the key points, which most people aren't going to go past this. Just listen to what I'm saying. Foreclosure start, which our initial phase of the process, rose 6%. Oh my gosh, 6% for the month. And we're higher than 20% higher than a year before. Completed foreclosures, the final phase, we're up 32% year over year. Oh, for sure, there's going to be another housing crash. Florida, South Carolina, Illinois led the nation in state foreclosure filings. All right, a low consumer, normal human, they're going to read the headline and they're going to read these key points and then they're out. They're not going to read the content.
That's right.
Now, here's the content. Pay attention. Foreclosure filing. This is what Diana wrote. I can pretty much guarantee you nobody edited this.
Which is, by the way, quite a bit down in the article. You have to actually read it.
Let me read it. Foreclosure filings climbed again. Yes, Julie's right. There's a massive picture, and then her article's below because they are anticipating that people aren't going to scroll because most people won't. Foreclosure filings climbed again in October after sitting at historic lows in recent years, according to new data released Thursday. While the numbers are still small, what? The persistent rise in foreclosures may be a sign of cracks in the housing market. There were 36,766 U.S. properties in some types of foreclosure filing in October, such as default notices, scheduled auctions, or bank repossessions, according to Atom, a property data and analytics firm. That was 3% higher than September and 19% higher of October 2024, and marked the 8th straight month in annual increases. Now, I'm going to try to scroll down, and I'm going to, hopefully she put it in here, and tell you.
Towards the bottom, yes.
Okay, is it there? Can you find it faster than me?
I don't have it in front of me, but I know that it's towards the bottom,
Okay.
and they were quoting Rick Sharga, and he
I got it right here.
cleared the air. Yeah.
Okay. At the peak of the great, this is scrolling down. At the peak of the, because here's what I'm trying to get to. You guys need to understand what a micro percent of the housing market is actually distressed real estate. But if you read it so far, you're going to think 36%, aren't you? And the reason this is important that you understand this is because your consumers, your buyers and sellers, they're reading this. They're they're low information people, and they're reading these headlines. And what happens is this headline, not the content that Diana wrote, but the salacious headlines that AI pulled out to get the clicks, that's what gets shared. That's what gets retweeted. And then the bad information just keeps on rolling down the hill like a snowball. At the peak of the Great Recession, more than 4% of mortgages were in foreclosure, according to Rick Sharga. We still don't know what. Oh, hold on. Wait for it. Are you ready? According to Rick Sharga, CEO of, we've had him on our podcast too. Great guy. CEO of CJ Patrick Company, a real estate marketing intelligence firm. Today, less than what percent? 0.5% are in foreclosure, well below the historic average of between 1 and 1.5%.
That's the headline to me. But compare that to what they actually said.
Honestly. And
okay, so let's hover there for a second. Less than 0.5%. That's less than, 1% would have been a big enough thing.
That's the definition of who cares. In addition,
but you have to give it comparison, right? So give them some context.
I got it. I'm about to read it. In addition, 4% of mortgages are 4% of mortgages are delinquent. At a peak of the financial crisis, almost 12% were. So here's Rick's quote. No foreclosure tsunami to worry about, said Rick Sharga. That said, there are a few areas of concern, and he talked about some of the delinquencies and things like that. All right, so, and it's not anything, again, it's just low. It's basically at such a low rate that it doesn't matter. And guess what's at the very end? We're using those keywords that we're hoping you're going to pick up on, affordability again. Okay, so again, I'm going to read the top headline. New foreclosures jumped 20% in October, a sign of more distress in the housing market. And then I read you guys, completed foreclosures, the final phase, were up 32% over a year ago. Rose 6% for the month and 20% were higher than a year before. Blah, blah, blah. And then we go down, and I'm telling you guys, I'm still scrolling. And then we get to still scrolling. Okay, scroll too far. And then we get to the bit where it says it's less than 0.5% that are actually in any form of distress. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about what's the motivation behind scaring the shit out of people that real estate's going to basically explode. Why? Why are people doing that? I don't have an answer. I have a theory.
Yeah, but that goes back to what you were talking about with Peter, where his stance was, well, if prices have to come down, we have to have a housing crash, right? So this headline would play into, we have to have a housing crash. Look, foreclosures are going up. There must be a crash coming. It's all connected.
Well, Peter told me, I know, again, we're friends. So I'll tell you for sure what his motivation is. It's not malicious. He just doesn't want the government in housing, period. He doesn't want the government housing. He doesn't want the government healthcare. He doesn't want the government in student loans. He doesn't want any kind of public-private. He is a libertarian in the truest sense. He actually ran for Senate. Do you know this, right, Julie? He ran for Senate in Connecticut, and it was a Libertarian Party. There it is. That's his stance. And I respect it. I totally understand. And I asked him, by the way, about the social benefit of housing and all that. He had absolutely no information and no interest in any of those perspectives, because in his perspective, housing and the government shouldn't be combined. Okay. I respect
and fair enough for that. Fair enough.
Totally.
Okay.
Exactly.
But here's the thing. It's also a good example. His stance was also a good example. He is by nature more of an economist than anything, right? And this is something that Logan Motoshami points out often on Housing Wire is that when economists report on housing or have an opinion on housing, make statements, what have you, it's coming from just that type of a perspective. Logan's point is always housing is not the same. You can't just spreadsheet away housing because you're talking about people's lives. If you go back to the 50-year we were talking about, that's a great tool for somebody to keep their payment low. That's going to give them a better life. They can go and spend their, the savings that they got from stretching it out and making a lower payment on Home Depot, which employs people, right? Versus, oh, we have to have a housing crash. What happens in a housing crash? People lose their jobs. There's more unemployment. Their equity goes away. All the bad stuff.
But let's talk about that though, okay? So this is something else. If you guys, many of you listening, it's not your fault. We're in the real estate business during the housing crash. We were, and we had launched the nation's first short sale coaching program. And it was the nation's largest short sale coaching program. So here's what happened.
REOs and BPOs, but go ahead.
Primarily short sale. So many of our longest term coaching clients met us during the short sale crisis because we showed them how to do short sales. All right. Why am I telling you this? Because people are lying to you about why the housing crash happened. The reason that the housing crash happened wasn't because property values dropped. That's a lie. The reason the housing crash happened is because many of the mortgages out there were short-term ARMs and the payments adjusted and people couldn't make the payments and they couldn't cover the payments with.
And they couldn't refi. They couldn't refi themselves out of it. And we didn't have as developed as a forbearance tool that the banks have now.
Well, those loans aren't even
very different.
Those loans aren't even around anymore.
Right.
They don't even exist. And the qualifications to get a loan nowadays are through the roof. And it's all these other things. So all I'm trying to say is you guys have got to start being very careful about who you listen to, no matter how energetic they sound. They all have biases. And I'll tell you what our biases are. We're pro you. We want you to be confident. We want to educate you, motivate you, and get you into action and go out there and help people get part of the American dream, which is owning a home. We want to be part of making housing great again. That's what we want to be part of. And we want you to be part of it too. But again, if you're believing the headlines, if you're absorbing this information, let's say you're not, your own personal experience is telling you 50 years good. You're saying, there is no housing crisis. You're saying, I'm not seeing any foreclosure. So your brain is telling you that a lot of the stuff that you're seeing, bubble up here and there. You're saying, maybe not in my backyard, or maybe not at all. Maybe it's bullshit. But your neighbor or your clients, they're not thinking that. A lot of them are going to be believing it, especially over the holidays. And be very mindful of who you're listening to for your sources of information. And you have to assume even really brilliantly smart people like Peter are going to have their biases, which are going to cause them to turn away from any information that's going to invalidate what they already think. It's human nature.
That's right. And especially consider that a lot of that's said with a lot of confidence. So it would be easy to say, oh, well, so-and-so said that, or I read that on MSNBC, or, it must be true, especially with those bold bullet points. I want to talk also today about portable mortgages just for a second, because this is getting some legs. Sometimes it's being called remortgaging. I'm not sure which term will stick. Go ahead.
Can we take a victory lap? And I'll give you the credit for this. So Julie and I predicted that portable mortgages were going to be a thing. You guys can check me on this back in April of 2025 when we did our first, I think we've done this show 4 different times now, called Make Housing Great Again. If you want to read our predictions of the things we thought were going to happen with regards to housing because of the Trump administration, so far it seems like we're hitting on all cylinders. And one of the most controversial was something called portable mortgages. Julie was the one that thought of this. She discovered it because she was researching, obviously, the outline for that particular show. And that's where we're the first ones, as far as we know, in the real estate industry to say make housing great again, but also to let everyone know about portable mortgages. Now everybody's talking about it. So a portable mortgage is, Julie.
Okay, so let's ramp this up for a second. First of all, this has been going on most notably in Canada and Australia. It's become fairly common, which I think is interesting because Canada especially is a very conservative lending environment. So if they're doing it, it's probably even more on our horizon. So it's being talked about now. Why? Because losing a 2 to 3% mortgage is what keeps most sellers frozen. This is called the lock-in effect, right?
If it's
Portability can solve that psychological and financial barrier. It'll also break loose some more inventory for us. So here's how it does work. There, again, people are like, well, how could you do that? Isn't that just an assumption? No. In an assumption, you are taking over somebody else's mortgage. In a mortgage porting or remortgaging, you're keeping your own. That's a distinct difference. You do have to requalify. It's a real mortgage process using the normal rules. Only the existing balance. So if you've got a $500,000 house and you owe $400,000, you're going to port what you owe on that. You're going to port the $400,000. So if you're buying a $600,000 house, you still have to make up the difference either with a second mortgage or paying cash or some kind of combination of that. And if you are financing the difference, then you're going to pay some version of the going rate today, whether that's, whatever kind of mortgage you're going to do. Lenders have to approve the portability. Right now, that's rare, but it's becoming more common. And there are some lenders in the US that are allowing the porting of your loan. So those are the current rules. A lot of, the headline is going to be just like we were listening to MSNBC a second ago, and the foreclosure crisis is coming and all that.
CNBC, you and I, we don't go near MSNBC.
CNBC.
Gives us hypes.
I can imagine that they're going to make mortgage porting sound subprime.
Yep.
Because it sounds exotic. It sounds like you shouldn't be able to do that. There must not be any qualifications, and it must be something funky. As well as, I think some of the spin on the 50-year, people were trying to make that sound a little bit, subprimey, and that you can't be doing that. But none of that's true because of Dodd-Frank. You do have to qualify for all of these things. Back to you.
So people are confusing a portable mortgage with a assumable mortgage.
Exactly.
And I've also read that people are lying about what an assumable is and saying that it's only assumable by a relative. Did I tell you that, Julie? I've read that a bunch of different places. That's not true. So so you guys don't know or don't repeat dumb things. Here's the answer. And this is a great sales tool to get your listing sold if you're in a market where there's, maybe it's tilting towards a buyer's market. So let's say the seller it's a $500,000 house. The seller owes $400,000, right? But let's say they have a really great interest rate, 3.5%, 30-year fixed, whatever. So they have 100,000 equity. I'll just keep the math simple. So if and there's a lot of houses for sale, and the seller might have to lower the price to $475 just to get the property sold because there's more coming for sale. And there's new construction down the road that's going to be for sale in 6 months, those types of things. A lot of competitive pressure. You can actually take that every listing you have, you need to find, and I'll tell you right now, virtually every mortgage is assumable. It's assumable with release. And Julie just said it. In other words, the lender has to approve of the buyer's credit. It can't just be any Tom, Dick, or Harry off the street.
They have to qualify just like normal.
Right. And they have to come up with the difference between what the seller owes and what the house is worth. So the buyer's going to have to come up with, they can assume the existing mortgage that the seller currently has, a 30-year fixed rate at 3%, right? Whatever it is, they can assume it, pick it up, and let's say there's, 21 years left on it. They're going to step into that mortgage, assume the loan, assume the term. They have to cash the seller out. That's an assumable mortgage. How are they going to cash the seller out if they don't have the down payment? Well, one thing that they could do is they're going to go to the seller and they're going to ask, let's say they can only come up with $20,000, but other than that, they're great. They can assume the mortgage, great credit, everything's great. Well, they can go to the seller and they can say, give me a second mortgage for the unpaid balance. And maybe you do a 723 on it or something like that, low interest rate. And then what's going to happen? Julie and I did this on the second or third property we bought, not unassumable, but we did a second, the seller carried a second for us. So because at the last minute, the lender wanted us to put an extra 20% down or something because it was a non-conforming condo. I don't remember the whole gist of it, but that was it. So we would make the primary payment every month, and then we would make a secondary payment to the seller. And we had to, basically that's all that matters.
So what you just described was an assumable with a seller second.
Right.
Okay? That's what that is. And it's not actually that exotic. Go ahead.
But I'm answering the question, the difference between a portable and an assumable mortgage. And again, virtually every mortgage out there is assumable. Now, lenders don't like to do them because they don't get a commission or VIG on the assumed mortgage, right? So there's not a new origination, so they're not making a commission. Sorry, lenders, truth. Hit you with the truth button.
But let me clarify. Nearly all FHA and VA and USAA loans are assumable. You should always look it up just to be safe. but you can pretty much count on that. And especially conventional, you do have to, actually read the loan docs.
Well,
But
Fannie Freddie loans are almost all assumable, right? Which is 90% of all loans out there, like 87%. So you can assume that most of the mortgages out there have an assumability clause, assuming that the buyer qualifies. And guess what, guys? This is a great way for you to pick up some rental properties, because you could go into meet with a seller, great rental property. The seller's got $50,000 of equity, but they got a ridiculously low interest rate. Do everything I just said. Now you've got a rental property, and you might even be able to get that rental property with virtually no money down because you're assuming the mortgage. The bank doesn't care necessarily as long as you can make the payment on the second. They're not going to, what part can't you do? Julie's sending me notes.
A lot of banks won't allow an investor to do that. You have to be an owner.
Okay, you were probably right. I mean, if it's a conventional loan that they're trying to assume and it's an investor buying it, that's your point, right?
That's right.
Yeah, but okay, so if you're trying
again, it also depends. If the house has been around the market for 6 months and isn't selling, then maybe the lender's going to be more okay with that. Again, this all goes into qualifying.
Right.
But go ahead.
So thank you for correcting me. So the moral of the story is these are things that are in the headlines. And because people don't stop to actually, first of all, the people reporting them don't know anything about real estate, haven't done the research, are reading talking points that were written by some, think group or whatever the hell it is in Washington, D.C., that are trying to, spin things a certain way. And even the best housing policy program that comes out, because it will make one particular political party maybe look good, is going to be spun in a negative way. And you have got to remember, I'm saying it now for the fourth time, that your consumers are going to be reading this and be confused about it. That's the reason we're educating you, and we're motivating you with the education that you're getting, hopefully, so you can go out and get into action and help people transact. Buy and sell real estate. Information is power more than ever now. What are you thinking, Jules?
Okay, so what you described, just to put land the plane on this, you described an assumable with the seller second. That's when I, the buyer, assume your mortgage. I take it over, right? The difference is in a portable mortgage, I, the seller, take that mortgage with me. I take my interest rate with me, right?
Right.
So that follows the seller versus the buyer taking it over. So, what would the advantage be? Well, guess what? If I owe $310,000, there's an example in the newsletter. If I owe $300,000 at 3%, one of our coaches has a mortgage at 2.8%. Let's say I don't want to break up with that. That's why I haven't been moving.
Do you remember Tom? Julie, remember Tom who used to work with us?
2.8%. It was him.
No, his was less than 2%.
It's ridiculous. So why would you give that up, right? Which is why we've had low inventory. But what if you knew maybe you're moving up, maybe you're moving down, whatever, you're going to still owe that same 300,000. Maybe you're going to move up a little bit, and instead of paying a mortgage of, let's say you're buying a $500,000 house and you're going to pay even under 6% on all of that. No, of the 300,000 that you only owe a 3% mortgage on, you're going to take that and you're only going to pay that higher rate on the difference. That's the point. That's why you would do that. So that does a lot of things. That creates inventory, because that seller now doesn't suffer from the lock-in effect. I'm never going to sell because I don't want to give up my low interest rate loan. They get to move, they port that with them. Their house becomes available for a buyer who's maybe hasn't found anything because of this. It's all good. So, and again, I go back to everybody still has to qualify. There's nothing funky about this.
Right. I have a question and I don't have an answer. I have an answer, but it sounds, I'll see if Julie lets me actually talk about it.
Okay. I don't even know what you're saying, so go ahead.
Why is there seems to be a group of people in the country, and they've always been there, but now they have a very loud voice that don't want people to own things, real estate in particular? Can you guys help me with that? Why is it that there's a big faction of people out there that are saying that people shouldn't own homes, that they should just rent their entire lives? Why? I want you to help me to understand why there's people out there that want to actually keep people from buying real estate. Why? Help me understand. If we know that the cultural benefits, the societal benefits, the familial benefits of people owning a home are insurmountably better than being a renter their entire lives, who benefits from people not accomplishing the benefit owning a home? What benefits from people who basically stay beholden and never have any assets and always have a zero or negative net worth. Who benefits from that? I mean, it's not rhetorical. Who benefits? You're going to say, well, nobody benefits. That's not true. There are people that benefit from people being beholden their entire lives. And Julie hasn't given me the nod to whether I can go further down my rabbit hole.
Well,
What do
I'm
you
just going to
think?
give you a little bullet point to, and then you will go back to what you're saying. For example, we were talking about the difference between renters and owners. The average net worth of a renter is 10,400. The average net worth of an owner of a property is 396,000.
Okay,
Okay, so it's 10 grand versus 400,000.
so it goes to dependency. All right, that's where it goes. That's where all this goes. It goes to dependency. If people have, okay, I want you to Google something for me, Jules, or ask AI. I don't want to get this wrong, but I'm pretty damn sure I'm right. In the original Declaration of Independence, it said the right to pursue property, and it was changed to the right to pursue happiness or something to that degree. I sent you one, just ask AI and it'll tell you, but I'm pretty damn sure I'm right. So I want you guys to now really go down this little rabbit hole with me. If we already know unequivocally that it's beneficial to everybody to own a home, why wouldn't, who benefits from people not owning homes? Who benefits? The people that want you to be dependent on them, the people that want to have control over you. Because if you own nothing, if you have no net worth, if you have no power, you are controllable. You are a hamster in a wheel your entire life. If you have no choice for, like if someone else is controlling your housing decision, it's communism, it's socialism, it's Marxism. Okay, did you find that yet?
Well, I don't want to nerd out completely, but it's the Constitution that says that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property. It's
and it got changed.
Right. The Declaration of Independence now says the right to pursue happiness. So
Okay,
yes, it's
but
been changed over the years. Yeah.
But it wasn't changed. The actual original document, when you go to Washington, D.C., someone didn't just white out the words and change it. It got changed societally. And it got changed in the 60s and the 70s. Why was it changed? It was one of these think tank deals where people are trying to, de-emphasize the ownership, American ownership. This happened. This is true. I'm telling you guys, I'm facting you guys right now. So you've got to understand that the faction of people that want you to be dependent, that never want you to have financial independence, that want you to never be rich. Okay, because here's the thing that happens when you're rich. And rich is merely where your money's working for you and you no longer work for your money. If you have a rental property or if you have a single family home that's increasing in value every year, you're not technically working for that money. That money is working for you because it's increasing in value. You guys get it? Rich is where your money works for you. You no longer have to work for your money. And if you're hung up on the word rich, just remember that simple definition that I just gave to you, right? So if you're rich, what doesn't change in your life? Let's say you get to the point where you no longer have to work. Your money is working for you. And let's say you have low overhead. You've Dave Ramsey the thing to the end zone and you have won the game, right? All right, so love or hate Dave. Dave's got a lot of practical advice. And let's say you are completely debt-free. You've got rental property income. You've got property coming from maybe EXP revenue share. You've got income coming from sources that you no longer have to work for because you're rich. Your money's working for you. You no longer have to work for your money, okay? Are you going to live where you're going to live? Maybe. Are you going to have the same friends? Are you going to have the same thoughts? Are you going to have the same schedule? Are you going to vote for the same people? Are you going to listen to read the same books? Are you going to watch the same media outlets? No. Some of you will. Some of you, most of you won't. Because when you have accomplished financial freedom, where you are, like if you live in Washington, D.C. right now, everybody around you is dependent on the government. That's where their income comes from. And I get it. It totally makes sense, right? And so if you're worried about, you guys get it? So your environment is controlling how you think, what you're allowed to say, and you don't.
What you buy, who you hang out with, where you send your kids to school, the whole nine.
That's right. Where you vacation. I mean, everything.
How you vacation even.
You're judged constantly by your group. I mean, yes. Did your community have a bunch of signs during COVID that said this family believes in, and a long list of, maybe you had 10 signs in your front yard? I mean, and you did that. And if you didn't do that, and everyone else, Julie and I drove through San Francisco during COVID, and every house had some sign in their front yard stating what their political beliefs were. Okay. All right. And if there was one holdout, I just don't want to sign in my yard. That person, I guarantee you, was the freak. He wasn't.
Vilified.
And
Yeah.
people thought, well, that person, because there's no sign stating what all their beliefs are, and all the beliefs better be in alignment with everyone else's beliefs, that person must not believe in what we believe. No, guy just didn't want to sign in his yard. But that isn't actually how it's interpreted. So everyone ends up doing the same thing. You guys get it? So it's not a function of wanting to be part of the group. You are forced to be part of the group because you're in that environment. Now, if you're free, because you are no longer dependent on that environment or that geographic location to earn your money anymore, you're financially free. Are you going to live there? Are you going to be influenced in the same way? You're not. Nobody is. Everybody moves when they reach some level of financial freedom, where they no longer have to be beholden to working for somebody or working to, pay their bills. The first thing they do is they change their environment, because the environment in which inevitably they find themselves in, it was suppressive, and now they're free of it. What are you thinking, Julie?
Well, I mean, it's very easy to trace that. Why do you think, Tennessee and Florida and Texas have the most people moving to them instead of from them? We'll see what happens in New York City shortly. I mean, it's very easy to see what people's behavior is. And even if you don't actually make the move, you have the freedom to do it if you wanted to. So with wealth comes freedom. That is just a fact. And what I was thinking actually, as you were talking, is how interesting it is and how different it is than when the country was younger. Because remember what the government did to settle the West? They gave land away.
Yep.
What was that about, right? And I believe there were a lot of different programs. I think there's even some states right now. I think Nevada and New Mexico still have some of this going on. But you had to prove that you had lived there. You had to prove that you could homestead there. You had to do it for something like 4 years, and you would get 100 acres or 150 acres.
But Julie, let's drill down on this. And I am going to be political, and I apologize for some of you. Okay. So if you are, generally speaking, what happens to people's political beliefs as they become more affluent? Do they become more conservative or less conservative? And by the way, what does the word conservative mean? You guys know, Julie, when someone says they're conservative, what does it mean?
It means that they want to conserve traditional values.
That's it.
That's it. That's all there is to it.
And the traditional values that our country was founded on. That's it. They just want to conserve and preserve
life, liberty, the pursuit of property and happiness, and all of the things that we were founded on.
Freedom of speech, right? So when someone says they're conservative, how many of you are triggered by that word into thinking something evil or horrible or tyrannical or Hitler or something like that? You've been brainwashed.
Well, again, to go to our original point at the top of the podcast, that words can change meaning when they're influenced by politics.
Exactly. You are in the housing business. Your job is to help people buy and sell real estate. You've got to be monitoring how you're being manipulated. You've got to be monitored. I am trying to manipulate you now, just so you know. That is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to manipulate you into being free with your thoughts, and starting to put up some good, strong filters so that you don't continue to be stuck in your own private tyranny of your thinking and in your behaviors. Because you can, okay, here's another one. What percent, Jules, you can fire up the Google. I know we have this. What percent of millionaires in America are first generation millionaires? In other words, they made it themselves. What percent? Now, a lot of you have been brainwashed to believe, and I ask people this sometimes, what percent, same question, what percent of millionaires, not even billionaires, millionaires inherit their wealth? And everyone says 30% or 50%. That's what everybody says. Okay. So the question is in 2025, 2026, what percent of all millionaires in the United States have created their own wealth and did not inherit it? Julie, do you have that ready yet?
Only 11% of U.S. millionaires inherited some or all of their wealth. The majority, 89%, are self-made.
Okay, there you go. So that's
and only of the ones that did inherit something, only 3% inherited over $1 million. So you could drill down even more.
Right. So someone inherited their parents' stamp collection, and that maybe was worth $5,000. That's technically inherited wealth.
Inherited, right? Exactly.
That's what they're saying. Okay.
Again, you have to define what you're quoting.
Right. But if you guys are believing that inherited wealth is how most millionaires become millionaires.
And I didn't, so I'll never have that.
Exactly. That's what they're trying to get you to believe, that you can't do it. Now, here's another crazy.
And that's why we have an affordability crisis.
Julie, I feel that we're probably being long-winded today, but I feel that we're hitting on all cylinders, and hopefully we're helping
Mm,
some people to clear
yes.
the cobwebs, right?
Yeah.
I'm making fun of the whole I feel that, guys. Hopefully you're getting that. All right, so here's another fun fact. What percent of the first generation millionaires made it from real estate?
Hmm. That'll be
Okay,
interesting. Let's find
actually, I
out.
know the answer.
Oh, what? I think it's
Basically
almost
all of them.
everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
everybody.
All of them. So virtually all first generation millionaires made their at least $1 million from homeownership and their own lifetimes.
Yeah, and even companies that you can name. For example, think about you remember USA roller rinks? It
Yeah.
wasn't from roller skating fees. It was from the real estate that they owned.
You're
McDonald's, the list goes on and on and on.
all
Go
right,
ahead.
so stay focusing on residential because Julie wants to go down the nerd
Nerding
rabbit
out.
hole even
Sorry.
more, which is interesting, but
It's still
I
real
think,
estate. It's just
yeah,
commercial.
definitely, but residential, okay?
Yeah.
So most first generation millionaires make it from owning a home. Okay, now here's another little fact. When do most people in America become millionaires? What's the average age of the first person when they cross the threshold from a net worth of 6 figures to 7 figures? What do you guys think the answer is? Julie's going to fire it up, or I can just tell them the answer.
Go ahead and tell them.
You're in your 50s. That's when. So
Yeah.
most people do not have a net worth. 90% of all millionaires in America have earned their own money from owning real estate, which the socialists and the communists and the Marxists don't want you to own because then you're going to be naturally become more conservative because you want to conserve your net worth. You want to pass it on to your heirs. You want to conserve it. And so you can give the money to your church or help. You decide where the money is going to go. That's definitely not something a lot of people in the government want to have happen. You guys know it's true, right? And they made it in their own lifetimes and they became single digit millionaires in their 50s. How many of you are frankly shocked Googling it yourself, the things I just told you, and surprised what I'm telling you is the truth? Yet, how many of you are then just hearing what I'm saying and just going to completely block out what I'm saying because you're so mired in your beliefs about the fact that the system is so screwed up and how the big government, or rather, corporations are trying to fleece poor people, and poor people are only poor people because rich people took all their money, and evil, rich people are evil, all this crap, right? This all goes back to the people that don't want you guys to own homes or don't want their housing, our industry to flourish. They don't want people to be financially independent. That is the heart of it. It's Marxism. Okay, Julie, I'm going to ask you for one more little deep dive for me.
Okay.
I want you to ask AI. That'll be quicker than Google. Who uses Google anymore, right? Ask AI uh, to show you what Karl Marx said. Marx is essentially the father of socialism, communism, about private ownership of property or anything else. I mean, I just summarized it, but it would be good if Julie could actually read it. So,
Okay.
are you guys understanding what we're saying here? So, a lot of what's going on right now is a turf battle over your future, over the future of your family, over the future of your kids. And the right side, sorry, has been losing. That's the reason we've been in a housing crisis for 3 or 4 years, at least a recession, probably a depression. This has been the crappiest housing market and for like forever. The home sales, considering the number of people in the country, let alone the demographics, the number of home sales that have been happening have been tragic for 3 years, at least 3 years. Oh, barely over 4 million. A healthy housing market is in the 5 million to 6 million range. And if we go in the direction to meet demand, the demographics is going to be the demographic trends towards home ownership is extraordinary, to real estate transactions extraordinary. Okay. So if we look at that, you're going to be looking at a normal market where 6 and 7 million home sales happen per year. And yet right now we're scraping the bottom at less than half that. Why? Housing policy. Full circling here, guys. Housing policy. The housing policy that was put in place during the Obama administration has been ruling the roost for all of these years. Okay, the FICO score thing. We could talk forever about the credit
Mhm.
scoring thing. It's something
Yeah.
else I talked with Peter about. Did you hear they lowered the credit scoring requirements to 630 to get a mortgage? They got rid of FICO. Well, they got rid of FICO because the FICO credit scoring methodology was basically
It was too narrow. It was a lot of people had more to their financial picture than just the number put on their
it
head.
was like 30 or 40 years old, and it didn't take into consideration the realities of how people earn income nowadays. And it was so outdated, it wasn't even funny. But if you really deep dived, as we have on this podcast, and looked into all the different antiquated, I mean, Jurassic level crap that we've all been having to deal with regards to helping people buy homes, it is horrible. Go ahead, Jules.
So hover on that another talking point. Okay. They've removed the credit scoring. That's the doom and gloom, right? You don't even have to have a 620 credit score to get a loan anymore. Okay. Do you know what? But the rest of the story is because they're looking at more factors, like maybe you're a renter and you do have, maybe your credit is 600 and you're a renter. Okay. But you've made all of your rental payments on time for the past 24 months and you've had the same job for 24 months and you have a second job that's, all cash. That's actually a deeper level of underwriting. Think of, and I'm sure that this has to be happening partially because AI is going to assist in the processing and the underwriting and, deep diving on somebody's financial picture, which is fine. But the point is actually quite the opposite of what the headline sounds like. Oh, you don't even have to have a 620 credit score anymore. Well, it's not that you don't have to qualify. It's the way of qualifying that's changed. So all of these headlines, one of the reasons that I think we're spending a lot of time on clarifying.
It's because the government, the
Right.
people that have been in power forever, love the position that they've had where they're making a lot of fees.
And they can brainwash you
we
by
did
having
a
you read headlines.
We did podcasts on all the money that's going to PMI, private mortgage insurance, all these things. And if you look to see what a honey hole, I know PMI PR people are going to send us another letter for me saying this, so I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole. But if you actually look to see all the different people and entities that are getting paid off these legacy expenses, and all these people that have been feeding at the trough for this long, it's ridiculous. And those people are also the ones saying, if Fannie Freddie come out of conservatorship, interest rates are going to go higher. Why? Of course you're going to say
Why?
that. Because you are making money from Fannie and Freddie being in conservatorship. You're making money from the PMI. You're and if you look to see these people that are saying all these, oh, Trump's housing policies, that's going to be the doom and gloom of, okay, well, who's saying it? The people that are going to have a detrimental effect in their own personal incomes when these changes go into place. You're in the housing business. Your job is to help people buy and sell real estate. And I know we have to wrap, Jules, so go ahead.
Yes. Well, so I hope that what we've demonstrated on our maybe not as fun Friday as
it was fun for us.
I didn't get to talk about any octopus or squid or anything
Alien.
like that. Aliens, future fun Friday. But our job is always to educate you, motivate you, and get you into action. And you're not going to be in action if you believe. I mean, look at all the different headlines that we went through. If you believed all of that garbage, of course, you're not going to feel like getting out and talking to people about buying and selling real estate. You're just going to stay, holed up, believing that nothing's going to happen until the prices crash.
And if you are trying to be ambitious in your community and you're trying to break the mold of your family's financial destiny, like we did, me more than her. I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way. I mean, it's true. And if you're trying to break the mold and you're trying to make something more of yourself and you're trying to do all these other things, but you're carrying around the dead weight of rich people are bad. Why would you want to be, what's wrong with this? Like, why do you want to be why do you want to buy rental properties? Why, blah, 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 blah. And then everyone's thinking that, if you guys are constantly wading through and carrying around different 800-pound gorillas that are, affecting your willingness to learn how to be your best version of yourself as a real estate practitioner, you're never going to accomplish anything in your life. It's the same reason, like the worst thing to do when you want to lose weight is to tell people you're going to lose weight, because what they're going to do, all your fat friends, what they're going to say to you is they're going to say, oh, you don't lose weight. You look great, girl. What are you talking about? You're 5'1" and you're 400 pounds, but man,
because they don't want to think about losing weight.
Exactly. And so what do you mean? What do you mean you want to buy a bigger house? What do you mean what's wrong with the way things are? Right. And so you're going to get constant pushback and pull down the crabs in the bucket thing. That's what's happening in our society right now. So you're going to have a hard time finding a community of people that are going to reinforce any of the things we just told you. And the funny thing is nothing we just told you is even remotely controversial or even conspiratorial. No,
it's just different than what you've been believing.
We're counterbalancing the horrible weight that's essentially the cloud that's been looming over our industry, housing, for at least the last 3 to 5 years, but arguably the last 18 since the housing crisis. And it's time for us to make a change. And it has to happen with you.
Be the leader, be the one that knows about this stuff. And, I was thinking as you were talking, it's our listeners who are going to hear this from other agents, from buyer and seller prospects. I've had several coaching clients, tell me things that their prospects have said that were just so far off base, obviously reading too much headlines and watching the wrong stuff. You're going to deal with this as media free as you would like to be, as we would like you to be, other than listening to this podcast, of course.
We're not, we're your friends. We're not media.
Exactly. But you're going to come across this. So it is your job, one conversation at a time, one buyer and seller prospect at a time, your friends this weekend, going to different gatherings and parties. It is your job and responsibility to bring your friends and family and prospects facting, as we did with you today. When somebody says, oh, the 50-year mortgage is going to ruin the housing market. Well, let's just not stick with that bullet point. Let's look at how maybe the 50-year mortgage is right for some people. And just because it exists doesn't mean the entire buying population is going to all go do it.
It doesn't exist yet.
These are just yet. But let's say that it did.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, that's all we're asking you to do is if you
think for yourselves.
You have to, in order to basically be, in our opinion, if you're going to have a strongly held belief or beliefs about anything, you have to be able to effectively argue against yourself to prove to yourself that you've actually thought through your beliefs. Otherwise,
right.
And try that. I believe in this. This is the way it is. Da, 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 da. Okay, now I want you to effectively argue using the best arguments you can against what you actually think and see if your own opinion changes, and it will. And then you're gonna go, damn, I have been manipulated. I've been lied to. And then you're going to start essentially, I don't know. I always get it confused. Is it red pill or is it blue pill? Hold on, Julie, six or seven.
What I was going to say, at the risk of also being political, was that was the whole point of Charlie Kirk's debates. The theme was prove me wrong. Right. He wanted people to say, well, argue against that point. And there are some very interesting, it's a great study in how to debate both sides and to listen to the other side and not just say, it's my way or the highway because I'm on this side and I believe this. Because that just, it causes people not to dive deep, not to think for themselves. So I appreciate your point that, have the conviction of your beliefs, but check yourself. Like when we're writing podcasts like this, we're always looking to have, naturally we would have confirmation bias. We're in real estate. We're pro real estate. We're pro real estate agents and brokers. We love you guys. So of course we would want things to be positive, but in doing the research, especially now that we can ask AI to argue the other side or to prove me wrong, we do. Where am I wrong here?
That's how we do it.
That's how we do it, because I don't want to just believe what we believe and put out there just because that's how we feel. We try and bring you the facts. So if we're going to say, for example, the average homeowner has $400,000 in net worth versus the average renter barely has $10,000, I better have those facts straight. So I'm going to make sure that that's true. So back to you, Tim, and we need to wrap.
I know we need to wrap. And so listen, guys, it was fun Friday. Hopefully it was fun for you. We want, again, educate, motivate, get you into action. Hopefully, if nothing else, we've created some curiosity in you to go out and do your own facting, as Julie's fond of saying. And if that's all we accomplish on today's show, that's fine. But look, guys, number 3 in the world right now on iTunes and our section on Apple, I guess we're making an impact, a positive impact, hopefully. It's our mission to be of service to you. Being of service to you guys, real estate professionals, is our highest and best use professionally. Your highest and best use professionally, what you're on earth to do professionally, okay, is to be of service to other people as a real estate practitioner. And if you have this type of information, you're going to feel more motivated. You're going to feel more excited about what the opportunities that are all ahead of us. Guys, you're in the right place at the right time. Now take the right actions. In the meantime, thank you for listening to today's podcast. Hopefully you've learned something from it. Please give us a 5-star review over on iTunes and include a pithy comment. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. If you want to suggest any show topics for us or anything like that, message us over on Instagram. Just direct message us, and Julie and I check our own messages. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, and we will talk with you on the show tomorrow. Hello, thank you for having watched this video. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
That's right, and don't forget to hit that like button, leave your comments and questions below, and we will get right back with you.
Thank you for watching this video, and remember to watch the next one. You're gonna love that one.